Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Two Old Farts. I'm Chuck.
I'm Lou. Covered up my snaggle tooth here.
You did?
Yeah, I had a dentist appointment this week. I asked the doctor, I said, well, how much longer? He said, probably, if you're lucky, late April, early May. I said, oh, man, just shoot me.
You probably won't be right until May or June with your teeth.
Yeah. So he said, most likely early May.
It's a long process. I trust me, I have been through it twice.
But the good news, he said, everything was healing like it should and, all those kind of things. So, and I've been able to eat just a little bit better. So it's hell when you get old, right?
It ain't for the weak or the young.
Anyway, so what's going on?
You probably just saw me drinking some water. It's getting warm. It's getting springtime.
Yep.
And I think you and I both have been doing a little bit of yard work and gardening.
Yep, we have. And this morning I've been getting notices all day, and one of them was a red flag warning. So I just took the time to find out some information because I think it's important that we understand that there's some things that we need to do. It's besides, I mean, as individuals that we need to do besides count on our fire departments and stuff like that.
So what does red flag mean? I know from being in the military what red flag means to you and me. In the rest of the world and weather related, it's completely different, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A red flag warning means warm temperatures, very low humidities, and stronger winds are expected to combine to produce an increased risk of fire danger. And you stop and think about it. Just here in San Antonio alone, this last week or last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of small fires, and thankfully, our fire department was able to respond quickly enough. And in fact, I was reading this morning where there's one lady here in this. I think she's in the San Antonio market or somewhere close in this area. She's actually been charged uh, with causing some fires in her backyard with a burn pit that she didn't extinguish properly, and a couple other things to go along with it that she didn't have the proper equipment. I guess hoses or water or whatever. I haven't read all the article, and she faces up some jail time for
Yeah,
that
it's yeah.
because it burned a couple of properties around her. Luckily, nobody got hurt or any major damages and stuff like that. So those warnings are for a reason. We have responsibilities. Another, if it goes back, if you're allowed to burn in your area, all burn barrels must be covered with a weighted metal cover with holes no larger than 3/4 of an inch. Do not throw cigarette butts or matches out of a moving vehicle. They can ignite dry grass on the side of the road and become a wildfire. And you see that. I know we do. I do on 1604 a lot, little small patches of where
Yeah, where it's
grass
caught
burn.
fire.
Then, of course, like what I was just talking about with this lady, you want to extinguish all outdoor fires properly. Drown the fires with plenty of water and stir to make sure everything is cold to the touch. Dunk charcoal in water until it's cold. Do not throw live charcoal on the ground and leave it. And never leave a fire unattended. Sparks or embers can blow into the leaves or grass and ignite a fire and quickly. One of the things that I do, I always cut the grass for my neighbors. I've been doing that since 85 because we had some good neighbors, the one next door to me. But the neighbor I have now is just a really sweet young lady. Kind of reminds me of Brenda and Tina, that type of deal, kind of like a daughter, even though we don't.
Like you said, she was sweet.
Well, she is sweet. Maybe not to you, Brenda, and I can see why she wouldn't be sweet to you. But anyway, I got out and I mulched the leaves in her yard, and it's like a 20-minute deal type thing because her yard's small too. But that's what we do as neighbors. You have to clean up and pick up stuff, so you don't have to worry about those kind of things. Got a lot of trees, and the leaves are falling down or have been falling for a while. And those things build up. It doesn't take much to start a fire. If you're not careful, they get out of control real quick.
Well, you know about that big live oak I got in the backyard. That thing is dumping leaves like crazy. You could rake it
Oh,
all up, turn around 5 minutes later, and it's covered again.
yeah, and in the different types of oaks, they will drop leaves at different times.
Correct.
I've got one in the backyard that's kind of through dropping leaves because it had the big leaves. Now my oak I have in the front yard has smaller leaves, and now it's just now starting to drop leaves and stuff like that.
Yeah, my live oak in the back is just about done. You can already see the beginnings of the new leaves when it's getting ready to dump a bunch of pollen. Now the two that I have in the front, I think an arborist had said that he thinks those are hybrids. Like
Okay.
it was a live oak mixed with some other kind of oak because it's similar leaves, but it hasn't quite started drop. I mean, it's a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, that's the same way the front one. It has much smaller leaves than the one in the back because the one in the back is a live oak, and I forgot what the front one is, but like what you're talking about. One of the other things too is equipment. You need to avoid using lawnmowers on dry vegetation, and then follow all the local fire restrictions on using chainsaws, mowers, and other type of equipment because those can produce sparks and things like that that can, especially when it's really dry and windy, then vehicles, you want to make sure you don't throw out any cigarette butts and stuff like that. And don't, and I didn't think about this. Do not drive your vehicle on dry, tall grass.
Think I know why.
Why?
Your catalytic converter.
Yep. The underside of your vehicle is hot. It can easily ignite gases from your exhaust muffler, the catalytic converters, things like that. And the other, ensure trailer chains do not drag on the ground. Yeah, just some things we need to think about. We don't think about it. I mean, those are just everyday things that are occurrences that happen to us, but we don't think about what some of the effects could be, of those kind of things.
Some of my best upbringing in the outdoors regard was through the Boy Scouts.
Absolutely.
All of that camping that we did in the Boy Scouts, with those jamborees, the the scouting manual and their outdoor manuals, they've got if you're into like wilderness survival, hiking, getting off the beaten path, you don't need anything. Just get you a Boy Scout manual. That stuff is probably the best.
And you know what you're saying, the most important trait of what you just said is teaching behaviors.
Yes,
You're teaching behavior. You're saying do all these kind of things, but they force you to do those behaviors. They force you to put the fires out when you have your campfire, to make sure that it's put in the water on, that you stir it around and make sure that the ashes are cold. You know,
and cover it with dirt. Yes, and rocks.
absolutely. It's about behaviors. Sometimes we kind of get away from those kind of things because we don't want to hurt people's feelings, or we're in too big a rush to do the next thing in life we want to do or whatever.
You got to leave it better than you found it. And they even taught us that in the Army when we would be out in the field and we left. I mean, we had to pick up every piece of trash.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even from a tactical perspective, in a wartime situation, you don't want to leave any garbage. Even the cigarette butts, your candy wrappers, that can tell a lot about, from an enemy standpoint, who you are, as well as how large of a force has been in that area based on the trash and the type of trash you leave behind.
What kind of behaviors that you have.
Yeah,
If you're lackadaisical, whatever I'm going to say there, but and you just cast things around,
careless.
it tells the enemy that you're not very coordinated, you're not conditioned to do certain things, so you're just half-assed. They know when they run into you that it won't take much to scare your butt off, and you're going to be running or doing stupid stuff that
Yeah,
not only endangers you, but it endangers your buddies.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what have you been doing out in the yard?
Well, I planted an Althea bush. I planted one last year and it was growing pretty good. Try to emulate your Uncle Ray and your Uncle Gene and your Granny because they had green thumbs, and especially Ray and Granny, probably more so than Gene and a whole lot more than I did. So I was trying to fertilize it. And so instead of fertilizing it with the right kind of fertilizer, I used some rose flower fertilizer on it. And guess what? I had to plant another one this year because your granny, that's one of her favorite bushes, flowering bushes, was the Althea bush. It's called Rose of Sharon.
So, why did the rose plant food kill it off.
because it doesn't have the right mixture of fertilizers and stuff like that. You would think Rose or Sharon, because that's the only thing I did, unless I gave it too much. But
That could have been.
anyway, I ended up buying another one that came yesterday, and so I got out there and planted it this morning. I used a little root stimulator and some fresh mulch, dirt and stuff like that. And it reminds me, like I said, your grand that was one of her favorite bushes she had back in Seal.
It's pretty. It's real pretty.
Yes, they are. There's different flowers and different types. And another one that I like is hibiscus. I had three hibiscus in big pots in the backyard. I was able to save two. I think one may have got away from me during the winter. When it got that cold weather, I brought them inside. But this year, instead of putting them in the garage like I did last year, I left them outside and I covered them up because I didn't think the temperature was going to get, that cold and stuff. But I got one that, because the springtime is when stuff starts to sprout and, you start getting the greenery and stuff like that. And I think one of my hibiscus is going to, I may have to replace it, but the other two are sprouting. They're coming along real good. I like the flowers. They're big blooms. They're purple and rose colors type thing. That's why I like springtime. It kind of takes me back to my boyhood growing up. We farmed, and your granny, she always had her garden. And it
You
reminds
did,
me
yeah.
of good memories of Gene and Ray fighting because Mama wanted Ray to do certain things and wanted Gene to do certain things because they didn't know how to do each other's job, even though they both could. Granny would always make Gene till the ground because Ray didn't know how to do it right. And so Gene had to till the ground, but Ray had to lay out the rows to plant the vegetable stuff because Gene didn't know how to do that. Even though they've been doing it all of these years, but to Granny, she wanted it done a certain way. And then she got the rows laid out, and she'd walk by there and she'd drop those plants and those seeds, and she'd make Ray cover them up. As you know, I still got those two plows in the back in my backyard that we picked up that Ray used to use. And then the other thing about spring that I really like is when I was in Corpus Christi, every Tuesday we had our area manager meetings in Corpus Christi, and I was in Victoria. So I had to drive down. And I really liked the spring because on that drive, I'd always take the back roads into Corpus rather than going down the main highways because I like seeing the farms and the cotton and the corn, and you can see it when it starts sprouting and as it grows and all those kind of things. I like the spring.
Spring too. My favorite time is when the blue bonnets are in
Oh
bloom,
yeah,
which should be in a couple more weeks. Should be any day now.
especially out on 1604. There's some places out there, or used to be, on the sides of the roads and stuff, or they'd just be solid covered.
Yeah, it is. That's my favorite time. This is about the only place that I've ever traveled through or lived or whatever where you can see the state flower in bloom. Like you don't even have to try.
Yeah, I got two little flower beds out, that one corner, and so I planted some butterfly seeds and hummingbirds and butterflies because your mom likes the hummingbirds and I do too. So I planted some of those seeds, and I got that little crepe myrtle tree in the corner, in the backyard. I'm gonna clean that up tomorrow, and I bought some more flower seeds to plant in that area. And believe it or not, your sister last year when they went, I think it was Italy, when they came back, she brought me some flower seeds. So they're starting to grow back again. So that's kind of neat, stuff like that.
No
But
flowers.
yeah, but
Nice.
I just like the springtime. It just,
So what's coming up holiday wise?
well, we got St. Patrick's Day coming up.
We do, don't we?
Yeah, we do. March 17th, I think that's the date.
That's tomorrow.
Yep. So I got some interesting notes on St. Patrick's Day.
I do too, and I've just got some conflicting information. So there one site is telling me that St. Patrick was born in England, not Ireland, which
Yep. That's what I got.
And I found another one that says he was born in Kilpatrick, Scotland. So I don't know what's true.
That's what I got. He was the patron saint of Ireland, but was actually born in Britain, likely in Wales, and was later kidnapped and taken to Ireland as a slave.
That is correct. At about the age of 16, some Irish raiders were attacking his family's estate, and they took him captive for about 6 years,
Right.
give or take.
And he actually was adopted. He adopted the name Patrick. His real name was Mayan Sukkot.
Yes.
Hmm?
What's going on here? Some website, the article just started playing.
That's what that was. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because you got to get your information from somewhere, and all of a sudden, some advertisement just started going.
Yeah. And he was never canonized by the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
then how did he get the name Saint?
he was never formalized because the process didn't exist at that time.
Yeah, but he did study to become a priest,
Yes, he did.
and it says he was ordained by Saint Germanus,
Yep.
and that's when he took the name Patrick.
Yep. And another legend is that he banned all the snakes from Ireland,
Yeah, he drove the snakes out of Ireland.
but there's no snakes in Ireland during the
Right.
time.
But it makes for good stories.
Absolutely, and that's what makes the holidays. You go back and all those kind of things, and it's fun to watch the parades and stuff. Do you know the first St. Patrick's Day parade? Not in Ireland, but in New York City in 1762.
Yeah, I think I had heard that. That is correct. Yeah.
And while the green is now associated with St. Patrick's Day, historically blue was the color most associated, and green was considered unlucky.
Hmm. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says in 1851 there were a bunch of New York Irish aid societies, and that they decided to unite their parades into one big giant New York City St. Patrick's Day parade. And it says that the New York City parade is the oldest civilian parade and the largest in the US with about, can you believe it, 150,000 participants?
Yeah.
Guess how many people line the road for it? 1.75 mile long parade route. Guess how many people line up?
100,000.
You are way off. You better add another zero,
Um,
and 3 million people line the parade route.
wow.
It
That's
says,
huge.
yeah, they say it takes more than 5 hours for that parade. Now, believe it or not, there's a large parade in Savannah. It's pretty big, compared to like Boston or Chicago or Philly.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's no these dang ads on these websites. And I can't turn off the volume because guess what? You wouldn't be able to hear me. And I wouldn't be able to hear you.
Hell, half the time I can't hear you anyway.
Well, I gotta get out of these web pages. These dang ads, man, they're killing me.
There's some other things too about St. Patrick's. There isn't any corn in the traditional St. Patrick's Day meal of corned beef and cabbage. You know that? The name is a reference to the large grains of salt historically used to cure meats, which was also known as corns.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no corn in corned beef.
No,
It's
back
a
to your point, he said he was born into Roman parents and either in Scotland or Wales in the late 4th century. Not sure where it was. Yeah.
but I do love me some corned beef and cabbage.
Oh yeah. Then in Chicago, the Plumbers Local 110 Union dives their river Kelly Green that lasts for around 5 hours.
So does the San Antonio River. It
Oh
gets
yeah.
dyed green.
Yep.
Did when you guys came to visit us in Massachusetts, did we ever take you to Fitzy's Pub?
I don't think so.
Man, they had some of the best corned beef and cabbage I have ever had.
The other one too is on St. Patrick's Day. The Irish Prime Minister presents the U.S. President with a crystal bowl of live shamrocks, a symbol of the close ties between the two countries. Be interesting to see if that happens this year, right?
Yeah. So you gonna do anything for St. Patrick's Day tomorrow?
I'm working my backyard.
You're not gonna go to a pub and drink some beer?
No, if I drink one, I'll probably drink it here at the house. I got some flower seeds. I'm going to that one corner in the back with that where Bigfoot's buried.
Yeah.
I'm going to clean that up. I got some weeds growing in there, so clean that up. And I bought some flower seeds, a hummingbird and butterfly flower seed mixtures that I want to plant, sow out there and stuff like that. Got some other stuff I planted. I got 3 tomato plants planted. I got one regular tomato plant, which is, one about that size. Then I got 2 cherry. I like cherry tomatoes.
Yeah, Brenda, she likes the cherries. Aromas are her favorite. Yeah, she likes the little ones, and I don't think she likes really anything bigger than aroma.
Yeah. So when I was at Home Depot a while ago, I bought 2 little small cherry tomatoes, sweet cherries.
Mm-hmm.
So I give her some of those one, but they're real small. The first tomato plant was probably about like that. Yeah.
You seem to have way more luck growing tomatoes than we do over here.
Yeah. Well, I got more time to take care of them.
Well, I think you water them way more than Brenda does.
Yeah, that's what your mom's always yelling at me because sometimes I probably water too much.
See, that's what Brenda says. She says, I've read that you got to get the soil dry before you water it again. And I'm like, well, apparently it ain't working with you because my dad's got a whole bunch of tomatoes and he waters the crap out of it.
Yeah. But it's also important what time of the day you water too. You either got to do it early morning or preferably early morning, not late evening, because it's still the ground's
It's
still
still
warm.
hot, yeah.
If you look out there and those leaves will start turning brown and getting scorched, you're
It's
watering
too
it
much water, yeah.
Yeah. So, but back to the springtime. Spring is more than just a change of the season; it's a rebirth of the spirit.
I can see that, yeah, because wintertime is usually associated with death. It's cold, it's bleak, everything dies, if you will, because things go dormant.
Yep. Nostalgia is in reverse. It's the longing for yet another strange land grew especially strong in spring. That's pretty much what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And in the spring, I shed my skin that blows away with the changing winds. Florence plus the machine that made that statement. That's true. You start thinking about it, you shed your skin. It's not you metaphorically,
No, it
but
is metaphorically. It's not literal.
everything. Just like that oak tree. It's already shedded, right? All the big leaves. So
Yeah.
guess what? Guess what is coming now?
It
All that
rebirth.
the
Yeah.
long green stuff that's going to cover everything.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Uh, and then you'll get the new leaves.
And they're really bright green and pretty before, they get darker.
And one of the other sayings, with the coming of spring, I am calm again. Spring has a way of calming people down.
Well, not me.
One of the other sayings by Christopher Morley, April prepares her green traffic light and the world thinks go.
Okay, yeah. I could see that. It makes sense.
Then the elder says, from the end spring new beginnings.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And another one that I like, spring, a lovely reminder of how beautiful change can truly be.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop think I put it. And those kind of things make me think about what are some of the things I was talking about earlier. I really enjoyed my time when I was in Victoria, especially on those Tuesday trips, just driving through the country and you can see them, the farmers running out there planting. Next thing you know, you see a little bit of green stuff coming up. Then next thing you know, you see a few inches, and then you see it all the way through the fruition with the cotton and the corn and all the other kind of things.
Soybean.
So that's why I like spring. It's just one of my favorite times of the year. Not only that, it's getting rid of the cold weather. I hate that cold weather.
Yeah, I do too. But as I've gotten older, I appreciated it a little bit more than I used to. And one of the strange reasons why I appreciate it is because it makes me appreciate warmer weather.
Yeah, and as your papa used to say, shut up and get underneath the shade tree. You'll be complaining about being hot out there, chopping that cotton and stuff, and complaining. Shut up, get at the end of the road, get under the shade tree.
But that is probably the single most reason why I prefer spring and summer than winter because when it's hot, I mean, out and out hot, you can go underneath a big tree where the shade is and you can cool off.
Yeah, you can.
There is nothing like that that you can do in the wintertime to warm up outside. You can't go sit under a tree and get warm. You have to go out into the sun
You
if
got
you
to
can
find
see the sun.
exactly, and you got to find a spot where the sun's actually shining on that spot, not just some daylight.
Yeah, you get good and hot and sweaty and go underneath a shade tree, and if you get a good breeze, it really will cool you off.
Yeah, I can always take stuff off. I can never put enough stuff on.
Yeah, because especially if you start working hard again, then you start to sweat when it's
Yeah.
cold, and then you get colder because you're wet.
Some origin of spring. Before spring was actually called spring, it was referred to as Lent in Old English. For those who celebrate Easter, you're familiar with it.
Yes,
During the 14th century, the period known as Lent started to be called springing time. Since then, that was when the plants, shrub, trees, and other greenery started springing back up from the ground. A
bring into
century
life.
later, the term was shortened to springtime.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Then a century after that, it was shortened again to just simply spring.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's a good note to end this on because we just hit 30 minutes.
Yep. Not bad. I was just, this morning, when you text me, I said, oh, because all week I've been trying to figure out something to talk about. Because I really like the conversation we had the last couple of podcasts on Buffalo Soldiers and
Yeah.
Tuskegee Airmen. I like it when we talk about history and things like that. So when I was out in the backyard, it just kind of dawned on me. I got that one alert about the fires, and then I got to think about spring. I like this. Maybe something to talk about.
Yeah, and history has always been my single most favorite subject because so much of our life in its current form is shaped from the history of the past and is shaping the history in the future.
Yeah,
It's important to study and know where everything comes from. Like I said, one of the last episodes that we did, I don't like to refer to it as Black History Month or whatever. It's our history.
exactly. It's our history. We're all part of it.
Right. And that particular group has made a lot of significant contributions, and particularly the Tuskegee Airmen, the Buffalo Soldiers. There was an all black tank unit in World War II in Europe. And, just the magnificent feats that these young men performed, the heroic deeds. I mean, that's our military history.
Exactly. And there's no saying. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
You ain't lying about that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll give a shout out to your daughters and my granddaughters and great granddaughters, and wishing them well. We got two of them coming up with birthday here pretty soon, and we're gonna go see Blackberry Smoke.
At the end of the month, yeah, I got 3 concerts coming up. I got one on Friday. Then the next weekend on Saturday, we got Blackberry Smoke, and then just a couple days later, I got another concert. I got 3 of them.
The springtime is getting that time again and get out, right?
Yeah, and they're already starting to pop up into the fall.
Then a little bit later on, we're gonna go see Trisha Yearwood.
That's in May, yeah.
You know, I really like Trisha Yearwood, but you know who I'm looking forward to seeing on that?
Who's that? Sweeney.
Yes, Sunny Sweeney. I listened to her on the radio on Willie Nelson's.
Yeah, on his channel, Willie's
Yeah,
Little House.
yeah,
She's a DJ on there.
yeah. She DJ and she has some Sunny Side Up
Yeah,
in the mornings and stuff. But I think she is a great singer. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing her there.
you got it, buddy.
All right, give everybody a big hug.
I will. And don't work too hard and stay hydrated.
Got my water. I got two
Keep
types of water I'm drinking. I've got some with electrolytes, and I got some just regular water.
Good deal.
And I got to go back to see my primary care physician tomorrow, so I'm all set.
And not only that, water is good for your complexion, your skin. You got to
Yeah,
stay hydrated. It's good for your skin.
keep all these good looks from this.
Exactly. You know, you and I like to joke and call you an old fart and you snaggletooth and whatnot, But I guarantee you, if I showed your picture to anybody, nobody would guess that you're 80 going on 81.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like it, and then other times I.
But you don't look like it.
Age is in your mind.
It is.
Yeah. Sometimes you just feel like, oh shit, I don't know if I'm gonna make it tomorrow. Then other times, that guy's old and can't think about it. He's younger than you are.
Exactly.
So anyway, have a good one.
You too, Pops.
See you later. See you
All
later.
right.
All right.
Y'all take
Love you.
care.
All right.
Love
Bye.
you. Bye.